Before we get started in our jewelry examples, let's cover the basics of retopology. So I jump into 3Shaper using the modeling icon, and we can go right into the retopology tool. So with this tool, retopology typically used for reverse engineering of scanned parts or models from online, things like that. You can actually use retopology by itself and just create your meshes from scratch. And any retopology you do is going to be done on a support object. And we'll talk about those. We have 4 tabs inside retopology for the tool. And down here underneath, we have the settings for setting up our support object. We can place it on a plane, a solid, or a curve. We're going to cover solid and curves when we go into our jewelry projects. For now, we'll just do a plane. To configure any of these options, you click the little blue arrows here to open up that section. Now we can choose the plane. So just like in 3Design, we can click the hand, choose any of our default planes, or you can build your own planes in 3Design and use that as a support. Just select them here. The only other option is to change the size of the plane. By default, it's only 10 millimeters, so if you need a larger plane, we can type in a different amount. Have a nice large plane to work from. I'm going to hide all the other axes and planes for now, so we can only see the one we're working on. Once we've done that, we're ready to start drawing our mesh. Switch back to the plane. And we see we're in the first tab, which is Add Faces. This is where we actually draw our polygons right on the screen. So just like that, we draw what we call a quad, or a 4-sided polygon. You can draw other shapes of polygons if needed by turning off, instead of having only quadrilaterals checked, we uncheck that and we can draw what we call n-gons, which would be polygons with more than 4 sides. To finish off this type of polygon, I can't just click to close it. We come over here and hit the Finish the Polygon button, and that'll fill it in. So I recommend sticking to quads and triangles for your meshes. It's much cleaner and easier geometry to work with. So typically we'll just leave only quadrilaterals on. Either way, if you want to draw a triangle, you'll notice, again, we can't just finish it like this. If we hit Finish the Polygon, you can work in triangles as well, even with the quadrilaterals selected. So really that's the basics of it. To draw polygons, we just connect the dots, start building our mesh. Okay. The second tab allows us to move and copy our polygons, which makes it much faster to get our mesh laid out. So instead of having to draw each square individually, we have 2 modes, Move and Duplicate. In Move, we can edit the mesh that we've already started and kind of clean it up as we go. Or we can Duplicate. In Duplicate, if you grab either an edge or a point, you can quickly duplicate out those polygons and fill in your mesh really quick. So anytime you have a corner like this, you don't want to grab the edge because you'll have a split between the two. So instead, grab the corner and pull that out to the other side, and we can finish that up quickly. The other nice thing we can do is move edge loops. So once you've got your polygons all laid out in rows like this, if you turn on Move Edge Loop, you can grab the entire edge and that entire loop will duplicate really quickly. So again, makes it really fast to get your mesh all laid out. The rub out mode, one more thing with the modes, instead of having to come over here and switch between them manually every time you want to change from editing or duplicating, if you're in one mode, such as move, if I hit Control, it accesses the copy, so I can quickly copy those. So I'm just holding Control on my keyboard without having to switch to the second mode. If you're in the copy mode, it's going to automatically copy, but if I hold Control, I can then go back to editing the points. So Control will save you a lot of time switching back between moving and duplicating without having to switch manually. The third tab is the Rub Out tab. there's some other little options here, but basically what it does is allows us to delete out parts that we want to get rid of. So if you've made some mistakes, you want to clean this up, get rid of that triangle in there. You can delete points, edges, or faces. So if you just delete the point, you see that claps that down to a triangle. If you want to filter out and only do just full polygons, you can switch to that. Or if you only want to delete an edge, you can do that. Or none would be allowing you to select any of the three. Finally, we have the preview tab, and all that does is it hides your planes and the mesh itself, so you can quickly preview what the surface looks like without all that showing. So really that's it for the basics of Retopology. We can, real quick, I'll show you, you can continue to shape this mesh by just switching back to any of your shaper tools if you wanted to modify it. Once you get your mesh built, you can go in and shape it any way you want. The cool thing about Retopology, if you have that option, is you can add to a mesh that's already started by just jumping back to Retopology. And oops. And continue to work on your mesh or add to it. Of course, that works with meshes that you start in a Retopology, or let me clear this whole thing here for you and see that we can start with any other model and still jump into Retopology and add to that mesh as well. So the beauty of it is you can really mix and match between the two. Start with a completely fresh model or build onto a model that's already been started. Really opens up the possibilities with 3Shaper and Retopology. So for our first example of little cool tricks we can do with Retopology in our jewelry designs, we're going to look at engraving some pieces into this ring. We'll use Retopology for that. So I'm going to jump into 3Shaper. I don't want to select the ring that I'm working on and then jump into Shaper, because that's going to try to convert that ring. We're going to just launch 3Shaper without anything selected. Once we're in 3Shaper, we'll go right to our Retopology tool, and we'll set up our support object. In this case, we're going to use a solid, so I'll switch to the solid support, open up the configuration, and now we can go out and choose our item that we're working on. From here, we go right into start drawing our mesh, like so. Again, we can draw the whole thing out a piece at a time, or we can get it started and then switch to our copy and move tab. I'll use my control key to copy these edges. We can let go of control and edit, kind of shape this the way we want. I think we'll do sort of just a little kind of squiggle or spiral type look here. Okay, so let's say that's the piece we want to engrave into our part. So of course we're only doing a mesh surface. We need to then use our regular 3Shaper tools to give this some thickness and shape it the way we want, and then we can cut it out. The cool thing about doing it in Retopology is we know it's matching our surface because it's drawn right onto that support. So from here, I'll go ahead and shell it, give it some thickness. So going to just go to my selection tool to get out of Retopology, and then I will select all the faces. It was a quick double click to select them all, and then we'll do a shell. Okay, we need to tell it how far to shell this part. So and I want it to shell into the model. So we'll go negative, and let's say we just want to go maybe 0.3 millimeters down, and then hit the little check mark, and we have our shell. So that'll cover the part that's going into the model. Now we don't want to leave this surface directly on the surface, so we're going to add some of this shape on the outside of the model so we can get a nice clean boolean. So I'm just going to extrude this side of the model just so our cutter sticks through on both sides. Okay, from here you can shape and do whatever you want for this. I'm thinking this sharp shape, maybe not the effect I'm going for. Of course, it's up to you how you want to do this. And we'll just soften all those edges to something more like that. Quickly look at the back side of this. So let's say maybe I want it to be more of a V shape engrave. What we can do is then subdivide this. I'm going to do a selection on one of these edges and do a ring selection so I get all the way through. So when I do a split and pull, we can split that right down the middle all the way around the mesh, keeping everything with nice quads. And then I'll go to box mode so I can select this easily. I'll just select this row on the bottom side. Maybe pull on it a bit. Let's get rotate it around here. So we can add a little definition to our cut. Okay. Maybe even sharpen that edge so we get that engraved look. So again, the rest of this, once you've got your mesh drawn in Retopology, is all about just using your shaper tools and then turning this into a part that we can cut out. From there, it's easy. We go back to 3 Design. We've got our part there. I'm going to unhide our original ring. When you use it as a support, it wants to hide it automatically. It's okay. It's still there. Click on Show. And then it's a simple Boolean. Because it's a mesh object, it'll Boolean really cleanly and quick. So just like that, we've got our engraved shape. So again, simple example. It's all about the technique. You can really go pretty far with this and create some really cool engraving markings by using this technique. In this example, we're going to put some filigree on the ring using Retopology. So I already have a ring set up here. It's just a simple band with a window cut out of it. So we'll go into Shaper again. Make sure we have nothing selected so that we don't convert any of our objects into Shaper objects. Go into Modeling, and then we'll go right into Retopology. This time we'll use the support again, only we're not going to use this ring with the hole cut in it because we need to put our filigree where there was a surface here before. To do that, for our support object, we're going to select the original ring before we cropped it. So you can do that from the history of it. And you can see there's the original ring before the crop. That's now my support object. I'll freeze the ring with the hole in it so we can see the difference between the two. And we're going to start drawing our mesh right on top of that gray area. So the cool thing is we can build our filigree and we can even overlap it on the edges so when we boolean it all together we have a nice connection. So I'll draw my first one and then we'll go into the edit mode and start duplicating. I'm just holding the control key once again so I don't have to switch back and forth. You can shape your filigree any way you want. Obviously, you can put as much detail into this and as much work as you need. Just do a simple example here. Just kind of stretching out the ends, make sure my filigree touches the metal at some point so we have that connection. And then we'll just do a little cleanup on our design. Nice thing is we can really get this to kind of spiral in and wrap around. Something that you may have found very difficult with a sweep, because the sweep tends to start to crisscross itself as you go around here. Yeah, so that looks okay. From here, it's just regular shaper tools. We'll go into our select tool, grab all these faces. Once again, give it some shell. We're going to go negative again because I want it to be inside that window. So that millimeter looks good. Validate that. Now when you shell, you get all hard edges. So once again, if you want to soften this up, we can select those borders. I'm sorry, select the hard edges and soften them if needed. Okay. And of course you can go and subdivide and change and add this and do whatever you want to it. Working on the mesh itself. And we get our nice piece of filigree. Exit out back to 3 design, and again we will show the ring with the hole in it. Maybe do some mirroring. And this will all boolean together nicely. And there's our filigree. Obviously you can add more, link them all together in Shaper. So, great little trick for you. And finally, I'm going to show you how we can use curves. Using curves is a neat trick because we can now create a mesh that matches a very specific shape. So we draw out the shape first. I've simply taken and projected this shape onto the side of my ring. And we're going to use that for our retopology. So if we go into, once again, it's a good idea to just select and then unselect, just to make sure nothing's selected. Go into Shaper. Go right into Retopology. This time we're going to set up our support as a curve. So we'll select our curve. And we're ready to start drawing it out. The first tab. Go ahead and just kind of connect the corners. Like so. And then in the edit mode, go ahead and create our pattern. Do some editing as we go. Yeah, try to make these as even and neat as possible so we get a nice even pattern in here. Something like that. Now this is a symmetrical ring, so I can just do half of it and then mirror it over using symmetry. So I'll go ahead and do that. If I back out of Shaper one level to our sub level, hide this ring for a bit so we can see. We'll add a mirror. Choose the correct plane and weld it all together. Back in our tools, we'll add a new edit surface to it. And we see that these points here aren't quite connected, so we have this gap. We'll use our Connect Vertices tool. That'll highlight any of those superposed points and just click the button to automatically join them. So there's our shape. we go ahead and subdivide this. I'm just going to do a quick refine on it. I don't want to subdivide it in both directions all over this time, so I won't do another refine. I'll just do a selection and do a edge ring, and then a split and pull down the middle of each of those. Divide it up into a nice little grid. So we'll go ahead and select all of these faces we've just split up, and we'll do a shell just like before. This time I'm going to go outside the ring, so I'm going to make a cutter. So I'll do a +1 millimeter. Validate that. Gives us our cutter, and then to select the outside, I just need to select this entire group of faces. So I'll use our face loop and quickly select in that direction, and then quickly extend the selection in either axis. Something like that. We'll do an extrude. This time we'll do a pocket mode in split so that each square will extrude separately. And just give a little tug on that to extrude it out. However deep we want our piece to go. And once again, we'll exit out to 3 design, find our ring and re-show that, and then do a simple mirror so we can copy it on both sides if we want, and then a simple Boolean subtract. So again, a very simple example, but you can see if the little time you can really go in and draw some neat patterns and come up with some cool textures that you can put in the ring. You get these nice booleans, nice and clean. We're not using the advanced texture tool, so it's not converting it to polygons. We can continue to work on this ring as we want. So that's our examples of using our Retopology tool. Beyond just reverse engineering, you can do some really cool tricks and use it on your regular jewelry items as well.